It's time for business news on the programme. Stephen's with us here on set. Stephen, we're counting down to D-Day, really, aren't we? More on the trade tariffs, the latest escalation of that trade dispute between the United States and China. It's all coming to a head, isn't it?
That's right. The next set of tit-for-tat measures come into force tomorrow. They're going to target $34 billion worth of both Chinese and American exports. The Chinese measures announced in response to steps taken by the United States, which wants to reduce its trade deficit with China. Now, these measures will confirm what many commentators are already calling a trade war between the world's two largest economies. Both sides have threatened to escalate further, with China saying the US strategy will backfire. From tomorrow, the US is slapping a 25% tariff on imports of more than 800 Chinese goods, including semiconductor chips used in lots of forms of technology, electric cars, industrial robots. China, for its part, is also levying a 25% tariff on largely agricultural products, soybeans being a key one there, whiskey as well, and SUV cars among the list of more than 500 products the Chinese are going to be levying tariffs on from tomorrow. Of course, this issue has been a huge concern for the markets, but many market watchers saying that investors have somewhat priced in this round of tariffs and are looking forward to what happens next. Having said that, the Asian markets all down in trading today. Chinese shares down 4% this week, so investors obviously a little bit worried there. We've got falls too in Tokyo and on the Kospi in Seoul. Today in Europe, though, markets opening pretty flat at the opening of trading. London, Paris and Frankfurt just edging into positive territory at the start of the day. In Germany, car makers there, their shares are trading up. That's after reports in German media that the US ambassador told German car makers in a meeting that a zero-tariff solution is still possible over the trade dispute with the European Union and the United States. Of course, the US had threatened to raise tariffs on EU car imports. That's helping their shares, at least in Germany. Well, staying with cars, Britain's biggest car maker has warned that a bad Brexit deal could threaten €90 billion worth of investment in the UK. Jaguar Land Rover says without frictionless trade after the UK leaves the EU, its spending plans would be in jeopardy. CEO Ralph Speth saying a bad deal would cost the company more than €1 billion in profit a year. JLR's warning comes after a string of similar messages from British business groups in recent days as the UK government lays out options for its customs arrangement after it leaves the EU. Now, the head of Italy's Social Welfare Fund has warned the country needs more immigrant workers to be able to finance its pension system. The INPS says the ageing population in Italy means the current scheme isn't viable and a planned reform will be much more expensive than planned. The call stands in opposition to the new government, in particular the new Interior Ministry, who's promised to cut down on immigration. Meanwhile, here in France, a report from the French Senate has warned the retirement age will have to rise to ensure the pension system continues to be funded. French people can currently retire at 62. It's one of the lowest ages in Europe. Solange Mijan reports.
Many nations are doing it, but will France be next in raising its retirement age? Before being elected, President Emmanuel Macron vowed that he would not increase the minimum legal age to retire. In France, it's currently at 62. But a report from the French Senate says there's no alternative.
The question needs to be asked whether we will have to increase in the coming years the legal retirement age.
To what age?
63 could be acceptable, and it would allow us to balance the pension system.
At 62, France has one of the lowest retirement ages across Europe. In many nations, the minimum age is now, exceptions aside, 65 years of age. For many countries have had to raise their retirement ages in recent years to balance pension funds that have been hurt by an aging baby boomer population and lower birth rates. In France last year, there were 1.7 active workers for every retiree. But by 2070, there will only be 1.3 contributors.
We know from the last report of the Retirement Council that there is a small but progressive imbalance, and we need to make sure it doesn't become permanent.
France's pension system is expected to hit a €4.5 billion deficit in 5 years' time. But in a little over a decade from now, it's expected to double that. Emmanuel Macron will be tackling reforms of the pension system next year. But it's an explosive topic that's caused massive protests in the past.
Finally, for me, Volkswagen is to launch its own zero-emissions car-sharing service from next year. Called We, the German auto giant plans to expand the electric car initiative internationally in 2020 to major cities in Europe, North America and Asia. It'll put VW in competition with the ride-hailing firms Uber and Didi. This coming after both Renault and PSA, which owns the Peugeot and Citroën brands, said they'd start car-sharing services in Paris as well. Everyone wants to run a car-sharing service, especially if you make cars.
Yeah, OK, well, we should see if it's successful, if they'll all be competing with each other. Thanks very much, Stephen. Stephen with business.